This is a refrain sonorously sung by Lou Goanna in the 1991 film Thornberry, and a set of lyrics you are most certainly familiar with if you are into the interests known as vorophilia, often shortened to simply Vore. I've been within the furry fandom for a decade plus at this point, and within that time I've become intimately familiar with the interest. So upon wanting to pontificate something in a podcast style, it seemed a delectable candidate for a first outing. A child of academia, upon taking up the topic, I went looking to see if there were any papers on the subject that might stand up to academic rigor. As it turns out, there's not much meat on this bone. The main source I did find for pontification was a paper published in the Archives of Sexual Behavior circa 2014, some 12-some odd years prior to recording. Vorophilia, a case study in masochism and erotic consumption by Amy D. Likens and James M. Cantor. I was able to find the paper after some digging, delighted that there had been some scientific rigour put to ferreting out the cause of the interest, but...
That can't be it. Where's the rest of it?
What I found did not add much meat to our metaphorical bone. The paper is some 5 pages long, and whilst I found the opening quite interesting, a huge portion is taken up talking about real-life modern cannibals.
I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
A portion of the interest so infinitesimal molecules would find it microscopic. And such an outrageous outlier of the kink that to front-load a paper with that seemed nigh ghoulish at best and almost freak show-esque in its voyeurism at worst. I would not say that the purpose of the paper is to besmirch the interest, but as someone who, being a furry, travels in these circles, I can only wonder how they could not have reached out to more people upon writing a paper on the subject. Within furry circles, only a subset of Vore, it is so common it has almost ceased to be unusual. And even outside of the furry subcommunity, the interest has always been startlingly popular.
Come on! Eat me! You're messing with the order! You don't go messing with the order! Eat me!
I found that the one person they do go into detail on was a man who was mostly into feet and matters of the rear, with vorophilia being a tertiary interest at best. So, despite my best efforts to do my due diligence and turn to academia for answers, I have to say that whilst the effort was appreciated, I found myself wanting. I will, however, give the paper a few flowers. I do not think in 2014 people were as open about kinks as they are now, and within the opening portions of the paper, there are a few nuggets to be gleaned. The abstract defines Vore as such. Vorophilia, Vore, is an infrequently presenting paraphilia characterized by the erotic desire to consume or be consumed by another person or creature. Few data exist on Vore, though several cases have been reported which appear to be consistent with basic vorophilic interest. Because this sexual interest cannot be enacted in real life due to physical and or legal restraints, vorophilic fantasies are often composed in text or illustration and shared with other members of this subculture via the internet. Whilst I am not a member of academia, and my evidence can only be anecdotal, I would say that this is all in all a good summation of Vore in as neutral a way as possible, which I think is what should be asked of a scientific paper on a topic such as this. My question why, after defining that the fantasies are often composed of text and illustration, then shared over the internet, was there never any attempt by the researchers to contact or explore the spaces on the internet where they are shared? Thus, I feel the need to go where the paper did not. Instead of looking to a paper to define Vore, I did what the paper apparently could not do. I asked members of the community to define it. Not broadly, but for themselves. The internet is a fascinating place, full of many varied perspectives. Alas, I have to say my sample size was quite small. It is not often one can go into such intimate spaces as these, asking personal questions, but fortunately I have many friends who share the interest. Well, I think to properly parse out the replies I got, I have to delve into something that the paper only briefly touched on, and that is the sheer variety present within this interest. I cannot go into every variation of Vore in one pontification, but there are flavours of Vore through every way something can be consumed, and some that are completely impossible. The width and breadth of the kink cannot be understated. But there does tend to be one binary amid the rainbow of gluttonous delights. Do you want it hard, or do you want it soft? One answer I got that we can put up front was from a creator in the fandom, keeping these names anonymous of course, who, upon being asked how would you define Vore for you, led me down a lovely conversational rabbit hole that I found quite elucidating. The question of hard or soft has divided my corner of the fandom for some time, and I can only imagine this is true far afield of me. It is the thing, I think, that most wigs out those outside of its influence. It is the simple question of, what happens after you're eaten? This open-ended question is what made up the variance in the answers I received. This first creator, upon the question being asked, professed a love of the kind of Vore one might find in your average cartoon. Oh no, in this episode of Tom and Jerry, Tom wins, and there's a shot of Jerry inside. This is the kind of Vore they profess to love, in which Vore is a consequence to be avoided, but ultimately seems to be the end of a game of tag. Sure, the prey is devoured and the predator is happily rubbing their tummy, but the tone is more Saturday morning than Hannibal Lecter. Despite the implications of being eaten, the next episode, everyone is in their starting places, and the chase begins anew. The kind of shenanigans you'd see every Saturday morning as a kid, or on Netflix these days. Harmless, right? But when questioning further, this respondent went on to tell me that upon the normal side of the internet, finding their content, they were accused of supporting murder, being a psychopath, and made to feel, as they put it, subhuman for the interest. That is why I'm keeping replies private. But it is also important to bring up the dichotomy as I go into the interests, as I do not think people know the degrees that exist in the vorophilic scene. There are some who like it even lighter than the above-mentioned shenanigans. In their answers, they said that Vore is an act of trust, something consensually agreed upon between predator and prey. A quote from a different responder in my small sample size. For me, it is the definition of trust on both fronts. A relationship built on indulgence and trust. Another quote from yet another reply. It almost feels like getting away from the world. Someone putting you in a cozy timeout chamber for a little while and letting you out later. Within these instances, Vore is almost an act of bonding. I find myself wondering if it is perhaps an ultimate form of hug, and if someone craving touch might lean towards this particular flavour of Vore. In a lot of these instances, the prey is let out unharmed after an indeterminate amount of time. In this, the softest Vore, the appeal is then simply being subsumed in the touch of another, listening to their gentle heartbeat, and being kept as close as physically possible. And yet, on the other side, we have Lou the Goanna from Fangully. Soft and hard Vore, which we will define as the level of severity of outcome of the experience, are more of a scatterplot than I originally led you to believe. As with anything that seems to be binary, more of a gradient exists than is found at a casual glance. Even in my first example, where being eaten is an undesirable outcome for the subordinate party, things are still considered soft to most who dance along this scatterplot. In that, after the prey is consumed, the most that will be depicted is the predator rubbing an overfull belly with perhaps an internal shot of the prey's fed-up face. It was a tasteful fade to black, with the implication of an end without the depiction, or, if there is a depiction, a cut to a forward point in time in which the predator is fat and happy, with the tone being as if they had simply had their fill at the buffet. Even within these realms, there were still answers about seeking comfort, and I quote, "I like the idea that someone would desire me so strongly, so voraciously, that they can't help but consume me entirely to have me all to themselves. Possessiveness to an insatiable degree. The thing that appeals to me the most is how much the predator looks forward to eating me, and how much gratification it gives them, how much they'll indulge and draw out that moment." End quote. Hello. You can listen to the rest of this episode of A Polymorph Pontificates on its own new YouTube channel. I haven't started a new YouTube channel in some time, but I really have always kind of wanted to do non-fiction as well as fiction. And I've always kind of wanted to make video essays, but I know my life and I know my energy. I really can't do video production as well as audio production. So this new podcast can be listened to completely on its own YouTube channel, and soon, hopefully, it should be on RSS feeds and other things. I would like to pontificate lots and lots of stuff. But yeah, new stuff. Please listen. And if you go to that new YouTube channel, currently it is really important to have comments and subscribers on the new channel. So please leave a comment if you resonate with what is going on. And if you want to comment, maybe comment on what I should pontificate next. Either way, I will leave you to go to the new channel and listen to the rest of the episode if you are inclined. But thank you so much for your ears and your time. Hopefully this new endeavor should lead to a lot of interesting pontification in the future.